Hello and welcome. I'm Karen McNenny, author, mediator, co-parent specialist, and divorce consultant. And this is The Good Divorce Show, where we don't just talk about how to get divorced, but how to be divorced. Whether you're considering divorce, in the middle of it, or navigating life after, you're in the right place. And it takes courage to be here. This show exists to bring divorce out of the shadows of shame and into the light of education, and to challenge the idea that divorce must be destructive or adversarial. You're going to hear from professionals and real families sharing honest stories of resilience and repair, proof that divorce can be done differently. Divorce is not a weapon, it's a tool. And when used well, it can be a tool for transformation. Thanks for being here. Let's dive in. Let's talk about dating. It's a really bizarre thing when you've been married and you think that's the end of the line. I'm never going to date anyone again. I'm not going to have another intimate partner in my life. And then suddenly, there you are, re-singled and navigating a whole new world. Now, I don't want to talk about your new online profile dating or even the introduction of new partners. I want to go back to the very, very start of what can be a really delicate topic post-divorce, which is, when do we start dating? Now, I don't have a firm recommendation. It's not for me to decide when you all should start dating again, or even if you want to. What I care about is that the two of you have a conversation about when you will start dating again. Because otherwise, there's going to be some hurt feelings and problems, and it can otherwise derail a good divorce. So here's what I mean. Let's say one of you has in your mind, as soon as the word divorce is mentioned, woohoo, barn doors are open, I'm out, I'm catting around, I am going to go and get some fun going on. Now, what if your partner has a different idea about when that begins? Maybe in their mind, dating, the barn doors of dating, if you will, open after we have a signed decree from the judge and everything is finalized. Or maybe it's a year after everything is finalized. I don't know. That's a broad spectrum of timeline of when dating could begin between the two of you. So again, maybe it's as soon as the word is mentioned. Maybe it's once the decree is in hand. What I think is important is that the two of you have an agreement. And this is one of the many things that I do with couples and that we talk about on the Good Divorce Academy, of helping you bypass these landmines. Because honestly, if you're not on the same page, there's going to be hurt feelings. Not even like, oh, I want them back. Oh, I don't want them to be happy. It just can come as a life shock. And we're trying to avoid additional opportunities for conflict. That's kind of my whole journey when I am guiding a couple through their divorce process, is how can we put up as many like bumpers in the bowling alley, right? No gutter balls. I'm kind of your bumpers as your divorce consultant. And this is one of the bumpers that's really important. If you think of it like that childhood game, red light, green light, red light, green light. Well, when is the green light? What is the marker of that? And beyond that, then what is the red light where we are not dating? Or maybe we've got kind of a yellow light if we're dating, but discreetly, so that our community doesn't know yet, or the kids don't know yet, and we're not bringing them on board. Such an important topic. And I'll give you a couple of illustrations of when I've seen this go wrong. Mom and dad moving through divorce with me, I did not have the red light, green light conversation as soon as I should have, because it was about 3 weeks into our work. And both parents were together in the family home. One of them had already moved out, but they came back for family dinner with the kids and whatnot. And one partner was downstairs on the computer fussing around and then had to run outside. manage the dog. Other parent goes downstairs to get something out of the pantry, and they see laptop open and a social media conversation happening. And it's kind of like an ambulance. You don't want to look, but you can't help but look. And so you end up looking. And so parent begins to read a very spicy exchange between their co-parent and this new person. And they immediately just feel sick to their stomach, so hurt, so angry. Not so much that they were moving on, but that they were taking time away from their kids and our family night to be in the basement having an exchange with this person. Tacky, tacky, tacky. And they didn't know about it. Didn't know that their partner was already starting to move on. And it really is the element of surprise that so often pulls us off course. So we're going to try and be preemptive. There was another situation where a couple together, and I'm trying to not gender these roles because men, women, they, them, we all make mistakes. We're all just messy, wounded humans trying to do the best we can. And frankly, a lot of days that can be pretty hard. So here we have mom and dad, and they had agreed discreet dating was fine once they lived in two homes. So we had crossed that threshold. However, one of the parents had gone to the country house, and in an evening of sharing a bottle of wine with the neighbor who was married, ended up in bed together. And married partner called the soon-to-be ex the next day to tell him what had gone down. So everything had blown up now. And there was so much disappointment and hurt. And now their divorce was ricocheting through the nice neighbors who probably now this was going to affect their marriage. And as a result, right, it ended up being a shameful moment. And sometimes in the midst of divorce, we do ridiculous things. We say ridiculous things. And this freedom and disorientation and re-identifying who we are in this world sometimes pulls us from making our very best decisions. In response to the neighborhood tryst, other parent decides, well, if they're going to go out and start having fun, I guess I'm going to start having fun too. Which that is up to the two of you to decide. So they decide to return to a previous relationship. A relationship that had begun 5 years earlier in the midst of the marriage. This was the moment of infidelity inside the marriage, which they were trying like heck to recover from. But partner B decided that they were going to have their first post-divorce relationship with this individual. And that felt like a second betrayal. And the children knew about the infidelity and they knew who it had been. And now this parent was inviting that person of all the people in the world. And again, they're not even legally divorced yet. Everything's still very raw. They're reestablishing their relationship with their young adult children who were 18 and 22. So it wasn't like a 6-year-old, which maybe a 6-year-old, it would have just all gone like water off the duck's back. But in this case, these young adult kids, they were very aware of what had happened previously in the marriage. And they were very aware that this person who was back on the scene was not someone they wanted to have anything to do with, not anyone that they wanted to spend time with. And they made that very clear to their parent, which made that transition difficult. I want y'all to go on and have a new love in your life that's more compatible and sustainable, if that's what you so choose. So by being thoughtful up front and intentional, you're going to have more opportunity for that new relationship to be successful with your co-parent, with your children. You have to be intentional and thoughtful. Otherwise, those new relationships are just going to be disruptive. Now, here's one more example. Mom and dad had gone to high school together, graduated in different classes, right, by 1 year. Parent A is having their 25th class reunion in the midst of finishing the divorce. Now, they had very clearly identified red light until the divorce is finalized, until all the decisions are made, all the paperwork is to the lawyer, and everything's been filed. Now, there might be a delay with the judge and backlogged of paperwork or whatnot, but their green light was once the papers and all the decisions were made with the lawyer, green light. So before the green light, this high school reunion was happening. And parent A started to flirt and rekindle a relationship with a classmate and didn't tell anyone about it because they were well aware they were still in the red light zone. Nonetheless, things started to evolve and they started to spend some time together under the radar until this is sort of a sub story. Parent A had moved out of the family home into kind of a temporary apartment. And they had young adult children, well, teenagers, 16, 18. And parent A decided, oh, yeah, the kids can come and go when they want. I'll give them a key to the apartment, no problem. And I'm always like, no, 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 no. You need boundaries. Everyone needs to have boundaries and understanding about the comings and goings of kids and where they're at. And so they had already defied my advice on that. And parent A was really loose with their boundaries at their apartment. I'm like, you don't think it's going to matter, but one of these days it's going to matter. And then it happened. Parent, new sweetheart, they are at home in that apartment over the lunch hour. Now, not having afternoon delight, but having lunch, legit having lunch. But one of their kiddos had forgotten their soccer gear and just took themselves home as they would to the apartment thinking their parent was at work, and they walk in and there they are, just having lunch. But why would their parent be having a private lunch at the apartment with this person they don't know? And they're clearly cozied up, sitting close together, having all the energy, right? If it was just a friend, they'd go to a restaurant, but no. They are home for lunch. Child is shocked. Child is nervous. Child is so taken by surprise that it creates this little, small t trauma moment. And then the parent asks the child, oh, don't tell your mom, don't tell your dad, whatever. Now you have to be a keeper of the secret. Not to mention, everyone at that class reunion knows the other spouse. They all went to high school together. So now the kids know this other relationship is started. And now the circle of friends know about this new relationship. And you know who doesn't know yet? The other co-parent. And when they do find out, not only are they angry and hurt, they're embarrassed. They're the last one to know. They're like, I don't care if they move on, but we had an agreement. And when those agreements aren't followed, when you are in the middle of negotiations, suddenly people decide they're not going to be quite so generous and they're not going to be quite so friendly because guess what? You pissed me off again. So you think you want the boat? No, I'm keeping the boat. I'm keeping that stinky old fishing boat only because you want it, but you screwed up. Oh my gosh. So again, this is why I encourage you as a couple, if you're not working with someone like me, the best time to have a conversation about new relationships is before you need to have the conversation about new relationships. It's usually in the moment when I talk with people, they're like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine dating. I don't want anyone in my life. But something even changes psychologically, but also energetically. And I've had clients, I warn them, like, you may not be looking for anything, but you're just hanging out in the produce section, checking out, the grapefruit, the bananas, picking out your pineapple. But you're walking through the world with a different openness. Maybe you've stopped wearing your wedding ring. Maybe you're a little bit lighter and brighter because you can see that this divorce is going to be an opportunity of reinvention for all of you, that some of the pain and harm and suffering is going to stop. So you're maybe got a smile on your face and you're looking a little bit brighter in that produce section. And there's someone else there who's also checking out the pineapples and the melons. And they just give you that side glance. And they maybe just say hi in such a way. And there's a little flutter. And you think, are they flirting with me? Are they flirting with me as we pick out our apples and oranges? Oh my gosh, that's exciting. And it starts to get intoxicating as well in our brain. And you may not have entertained or started that exchange in the produce department, but your energy has changed. And there might be someone who takes, notice of you in a new way. Someone who's interested in what you're interested in. Many of the things that are beginning to erode and dissolve at the end of our relationships can start showing up in a new place, which I celebrate for you. Again, I hope that we all get to move on into a new relationship that lights us up, that is healthy, and that we've learned something as we've come through our marriage, and that we get to grow in a new garden with a new person. That's what I hope for. But I would also caution you that while you're in the midst of your divorce process and even right on the heels of all that paperwork and decisions being made, might not be the best time to start a new relationship. No, maybe you just need a little flirting and maybe you need to go on some dates and it all feels new and exciting. But I think those of us post-divorce for a time should have a warning sign across our forehead that basically says, proceed with caution, unstable human, making rash decisions will probably disappoint you, should not be starting a new relationship on the heels of my marriage dissolving. So be thoughtful and allow one thing to end. Full red light before the next thing begins. Green light. Wishing you all the best as you explore your new future. And remember, everything will be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end.